tape's always king. Tape is going to be 80% of the evaluation, but still, you would rather, if you're going to draft a guy, especially in the first round, top 50 picks, you don't want question marks. You want to eliminate those question marks. And so understanding the context of the different data points with the athleticism and everything the combine gives us, that's where teams are going to go back to the drawing board and try to figure it out with a few of these guys that maybe didn't line up perfectly with what was expected.
Does this cause teams, going back to Booker for just a second, just because that could be a fit, many people think it's a fit for Seattle, does this cause now people to go back and look at more tape on him? Do you think how he tested this weekend, will it affect his draft stock? Do you think he will slide maybe even past 18? Oh, I mean, I don't know if Seattle, if he's there at 18, maybe Seattle takes him, but does it cause teams above Seattle to take a second look and maybe be cautious with him?
I think when you watch his tape, you see a passable athlete, but there will be some teams that maybe have, every team's different with their thresholds. They might look at the combine testing numbers and say, you know what, that's not what we're looking for, and especially as guys get older, they don't become better athletes, they don't become quicker and faster. So, that's something, and schemes are different with what they ask, with outside zone. And so the scheme part of this will factor in as well. Some teams prioritize mobility more than others. So I think every team's going to look at it a little bit differently. And he could still go 10 to the Bears. I wouldn't be shocked at all, because the tape says, hey, this guy looks like a future Pro Bowler. Because once he gets his hands on you, it's over. He moves well enough in those tight quarters where he's not getting beat very easily. So I think it really will depend on the team and how they reconcile that information.
Seattle, I mean, with Clint Kubiak and their new offensive scheme with Dennison at the offensive line, they're a zone blocking scheme. Going back to the old kind of the Shanahan tree of it. Does if it's not, does Booker fit that zone blocking scheme? If he doesn't, who does in that interior offensive line group that you watched this weekend?
Yeah, I think that's where it might be a tough sell with the type of athlete that they could be looking for. I think based off of what they might be looking for, I thought Gray Zabel from North Dakota State had a great week, and he would, I think, be a really nice fit. Zabel was a guy going back to my mid-season top 50, right around Halloween. He was, I think, 47 at that point. And the feedback from teams was, it's a little early, but, I guess I could see it. But then he goes to the combine, or he goes to the Senior Bowl in Mobile and just crushes it. Goes to the combine this past weekend, crushes it. And now we're at the point where we're talking about him as a first rounder, a likely top 25 pick. And so for him to go as early as, say, 18, I don't think it's a complete shock because of, intangible factor, check that box, tangible factor, check that box. The way he was moving, the athleticism, showed up in the drills, showed up in the position work. He was a left tackle in college, but you project him at guard and center and think he could play either at a very high level. So Gray Zabel, I think, definitely helped himself. And then Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, and this is a light center class, but which is going to help Gray Zabel. It's going to help Jared Wilson. Jared Wilson, talk about an athlete, 1-year starter at center, which is not ideal. But when you see him move out there, it's like, okay, you've got my attention. He had, during his 40, I think his 40 was like 4.84, which is crazy. But his miles per hour, he got over 21 miles per hour during his 40-yard dash. I mean, he's getting pulled over in a school zone if he's just jogging. So he's the only interior offensive lineman to get over 21 miles an hour during his 40-yard dash over the last 4 years. So, I mean, he's just an impressive athlete. And his offensive line trainer, Duke Manyweather, told me he was going to put on a show. He didn't disappoint. Jared Wilson, I mean, he was already kind of in that top 100 mix. I had a 3rd round grade on him coming into the combine. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into the 2nd now, partly because he was that impressive, and then also partly it's just a rough center group. And if you don't get your guy early, I think you might be left without some options later on.
Look, I want to go back to Zabel for a second. Does the quality of the opponent affect how teams view him?
Well, I mean, it should to a certain degree because, going up against FCS competition, like that's like whenever someone sits down and watches tape, the first thing you should be pointing out is who is he playing. That should be the first thing. Understand the competition, and even if it's a Division One or an FBS team, okay, well, if I'm watching an offensive tackle and I'm watching him go up against Washington, making note, okay, does Washington have any good pass rushers? I mean, maybe it's an off year and they don't have good pass rushers that year. So just understanding the competition is certainly like the first thing that you should be looking for whenever you watch tape. And with Gray Zabel, yeah, they played Colorado in the opener, so you at least have some frame of reference about him going up against better competition. But Colorado wasn't exactly known for their defensive line. And that game against Colorado, so he started 40 games in his career at North Dakota State. The game against Colorado was his only start against FBS competition. So not ideal, but that's why his Senior Bowl was so big. Going to Mobile and showing out the way he did at both guard and center is going to, I think, eliminate a lot of that doubt that teams might have had going in.